Hey there, everybody. My name is Bradston Henry, and I'm super excited to have you guys here today because this is the first inaugural episode of Ask a Dev. So what's the whole goal of Ask a Dev? Well, the whole series is all about you asking me, a dev, any question that you have on your mind, and also getting an opportunity to hear from the dev community at large. So not only will you hear questions answered by me, but you'll also get a chance to hear questions answered by devs all out there in the World Wide Web. So with all that being said, let's get into our very first question. And I feel like this is a question that I get all the time as a developer, from people who are really trying to figure out what their first steps are going to be when they're trying to pursue a development career. The question is, what is the best programming language for beginners? So if you've ever looked up this question either on Google or YouTube or any other place, you've probably seen tons and tons of different answers. Well, I'm not going to say that my answer is definitive or the perfect answer, but I think this answer is coming from a perspective of, coming from, not knowing anything about programming, not going to school for programming, and over the years of learning a lot of different languages, kind of seeing the ins and outs of different languages and kind of coming to, a conclusion about this. For me, the easiest language or the best language for beginners, programming language, I would have to say is JavaScript. So there's quite a few different reasons that I think JavaScript is a great programming language for beginners, but I'm going to break it down into basically 3 different reasons I think JavaScript is a great place to start for beginners. So the first reason that I think that JavaScript is a great place to start for beginners is because it has a low barrier of entry. I'll say this really honestly and really genuinely. I think if any person were hanging out with me and they just wanted to learn how to code and I had 10 minutes to show it to them, I'm pretty sure that I could show you some simple thing in JavaScript in 10 minutes without you having to have anything special on your computer or anything special knowledge. Like, you could really get into there. Like, a perfect example is that if you have a computer, if you have a browser, and you have a text editor, I'm pretty sure I could get you using JavaScript within a few minutes. So all I would do is tell you, hey, open up a text editor. We're going to type in some simple HTML code and then put a little bit of JavaScript in there. And then we're going to save this file as an HTML file. And then we're going to run it in your browser. And just like that, you're starting to use JavaScript. That is a huge advantage when you're starting to learn how to program. Instead of having to have all these extra specialized tools or extra specialized knowledge, you can kind of start from pretty much anywhere with JavaScript. If you're interested in mobile, there's some place for you to start learning JavaScript. If you're interested in web, there's a place for you to start learning JavaScript. If you're interested in, any like games, if you're interested in just doing math and different things or physics, like there's something in JavaScript that allows you to get started. The second key reason that I think that, JavaScript is a great place for beginners is that it is widely used out in the wild, out in the world. People use it all the time, and there's tons and tons of resources for learning. So what do I mean by that? I mean that it's widely used, meaning that people are using it everywhere. If you're in any country, if you're in any region, if you're doing any type of project, JavaScript has probably been used in some capacity in that way. What do I mean? Like, say you just wanted to Google, how do you make a calculator in JavaScript? I promise you could probably find 10 to 100 different tutorials on just how to make a simple calculator in JavaScript. And because it's so widely used, somebody has probably asked a question that you're thinking of before you even thought of it. You could Google search something as simple as, how do you add 2 numbers? And there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of resources on how to do that. JavaScript has been around for a very, very long time. It has a lot of knowledge base, and there's a lot of expertise out there in the world with JavaScript. So if you're getting started, it's a great place to start because you're not just jumping into, a chasm of lack of knowledge where you just got to guess and figure out things along the way. You really have a lot of different resources to reach out to, and a lot of people are using it. So, you're not alone when you're going along this journey of learning JavaScript. So the final reason that I think JavaScript is a great option for people beginning to program is that you learn a lot from its limitations. If you've programmed a lot and you've touched a lot of different languages, you've probably learned that there's a lot of different nuances to each language. If it's C++, if it's C#, if it's, Swift, if it's JavaScript. But one thing that JavaScript really brings to the table that I think helps to be a learning lesson is that JavaScript lets you do almost anything. And because it lets you do almost anything, it kind of becomes an interesting test in learning what's good and what's bad. A lot of more modern languages don't let you make certain mistakes. It doesn't let you put a variable in a certain place that would completely mess up your program, or it doesn't let you put a question mark in a place that would completely, confuse you for hours and hours, and you're like, why did this happen? I think JavaScript, even though it can be sometimes a little frustrating that it allows you to do little weird things that aren't helpful, it actually kind of forces you to start to learn to program in a better way. And I think sometimes when you use more modern languages, more, I guess you could say mature languages, sometimes it doesn't let you make those mistakes and learn along the way. And I think the really cool thing about JavaScript is that it lets you try things, it lets you experiment and learn from your own mistakes. And when you get further and further in your career, learning from mistakes early is great, because now that you have these principles and you have these practices, you know not to use them in the long term in bigger and more important projects when you get further out into your career. So in summary, I think JavaScript is a great language to really get you started. I think one, just it having a low barrier of entry means that you can just get started right away. You don't need all these extra special tools to really get going. And that allows you just to start and begin, to get in there and just start programming. I think the second thing is that the fact that there's so many people using it and there's so many resources out there, there's so many opportunities for you to learn from what people have already done. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And that allows you to just really focus on your learning and really just use JavaScript as a platform to take you to the next level. And lastly, I think that the limitations that JavaScript has also is a great way to learn lessons about programming and coding. Yes, it's going to be frustrating from time to time, but it's really going to teach you good practices and principles that you'll need for the long term as you become a professional developer. So if I were to leave you with anything, I would just encourage you to go out there and try it. Even if it's not JavaScript, if it's C++, if it's C#, if it's any language that just piques your interest, just go for it. At the end of the day, this is a journey and you're going to learn a lot just from taking your first steps. So don't be afraid to just go for it. I think JavaScript is a great place to begin for all of those new and, aspiring developers. But at the same time, I think even if it's not JavaScript, you should just go for it, because I think just going for it and just taking those chances and learning along the way is going to take you so much further than you ever could imagine. Also, I just encourage you to check out what, developers are saying in general about coding and in the different places. One of the really cool communities that I'm involved with right now is dev.to. There's so many cool blogs from a lot of really experienced developers, people who are just sharing a lot of knowledge. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, please feel free to follow me, of course, on dev.to. I'll share some links to some of the stuff that I'm already, worked on and already made. And it's just a good place to get started and learn. So I encourage you to just go out there, join communities, join, what's going on in the, the learning developer community, and just become a part of it. So now it's time for me to ask you guys, what do you guys think? What do you think is the best programming language for beginners? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Please share what language you think is the best, and also why you think beginners should really use it. I'd love to hear your opinions. I love to hear what you guys are thinking. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna compile a lot of the different thoughts from the community, and in one of my coming videos, I'm gonna share what you guys have said for the benefit of all those developers who are trying to grow and learn something new. And for anybody else who's watching the video and just would like to ask a question, please do share them in the comments below or on my blog. I want to answer questions and share them with the community, with the World Wide Web. Please do not be afraid to share your questions. I'd love to hear them. Well, it's been great talking to you guys, and I really appreciate you guys checking out this video. Please subscribe. Please like this video. I want to continue making this series and continue to make it grow. So anything that you can give me, from a like to a subscribe, is so meaningful. So thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for taking your time to watch this video. And remember, never forget to ask a dev. Y'all take it easy. Peace.